Today, we're talking about 7 tactics that manipulators use when it comes to either parents, grandparents with their children, or their grandchildren. So let's start with tactic number 1, and we will go from there. So like I said, there are 7 tactics that we're going to go through. This doesn't cover all of them, but it covers a good majority. And if you can relate to having experienced or having done one of these things, then this is a great learning opportunity for you. So number 1 is triangulation. Triangulation, I just want you to think about it like a triangle, right? You have one person at the top, and that's the manipulator. And what they do is they tell one person one thing, the other person something else, in order to get them against each other. And then they step away and let everything take its course. While both of these people are misunderstanding each other, arguing, unforgiveness, anger, bitterness, resentment, all that stuff comes up, and they don't have to do anything else. I'm sure most of you listening to this have experienced that, and that's not fun. That is really not fun, because it makes you feel unheard, unseen. It rifts and breaks relationships, siblings. So many hurtful and harmful things can happen in relationships based off of that. Now, why do people do this? Why do people engage in this behavior? For starters, some reasons could include personality disorders, just like depression and anxiety are mental health disorders. Personality disorders are just that. Different types of personality disorders come with different symptoms, right? So some personality disorders come with the inability to empathize with others, and very self-centered and selfish. So it's difficult to see past my wants, my needs. I may do something for you, but it's definitely not for you. It's really for me. It's out of selfish gain, which is playing favorites. I'm sure some of you guys have experienced this. It is well known that person is so-and-so's favorite, and they make sure to make it known. Or it's very subtle, and in psychology terms, we'd call it passive aggressive, which means that it's not outrightly stated or outrightly shown, but it is covertly shown. So you can sense it, you can see it, but nothing is actually said. And so you tend to question it, like, no, maybe I'm, making things up, or maybe I'm doing too much, or maybe I'm reading too much into it. No, you're probably most likely not reading too much into it. What is the next tactic? Let's dive into that. Third one is exploiting vulnerabilities. So the space where you are most vulnerable, they got your number. Manipulative tactics include understanding the person's weaknesses, so to speak, or places in which they are more susceptible to being manipulated and harping on that. And unfortunately, that's one of the ugliest parts of being manipulated, is that they seek that out. And so they will do whatever it takes to make sure that they take full advantage of that. Now, another tactic, number 4, is filling a need or fulfilling a need, right? Meeting a need. You may have the need for help financially. You may have the need for resources, but you may need things maybe to get to work, maybe to get to school. You may need something. And when they find out that you need something, they will be the first ones in line. Oh, I'll take you, sweetie. Oh, don't worry about it. I got you. But it's never selfless. It may seem kind. You may be like, well, no harm, no foul, they're offering. But there's always an agenda behind it. And you'll know this when it starts to become a pattern. They bring it up later on. They use it to get something from you, or they use it or they brag about it in front of other people and making you look like you were the one who maybe forced them to do it, or, pressured them to do it. There's so many different ways. But what you'll notice is there's a pattern of them using their nice gesture against you. Number 5, subtle isolation. What does that mean? It's in the name. A lot of narcissistic personality disorders and manipulative disorders, but really narcissism, what we see is that they try their hardest to get you in a space where you are only dependent on them. So maybe that may mean moving away from family and friends and the life that you've known, and not in a very overt kind of way, but this happens slowly over time, which is why it's a little bit difficult to understand these patterns when you're in it. And so when you depend on them for almost all of your resources, it's very hard for you to seek help outside of them, which means they've got the control, they've got the power, and they will use that. And we are on number 6, and this is gaslighting. This is very, very common, and it boils down to when you question your own reality. You would never question the fact if I tell you, hey, the sky's actually purple. You'd be like, no, girl, what are you talking about? No. But manipulation, it gets to a point where they flip the script on you so much, and they make you feel like you're the one who's doing too much. You're overreacting. You didn't remember that correctly. No, you didn't say that. I didn't say that. That's not what happened. to the point where you actually start to question, wait, did I not say that? Is that not what actually happened? When you start to question those things, you can guarantee that you have been gaslit. And remember, the few points that I really want you to remember is, one, these things happen gradually and slowly. Two, it's not usually overt and in your face. It's very hidden and passive so that you don't even notice it. And then small things over time, obviously, it turns into bigger things. And the last one, number 7, is buying loyalty. Expensive gift giving, lots of showering of gifts and experiences and all of these wonderful things where you think, wow, this person is so selfless, so loving. This can either come after emotional, mental, physical, or verbal abuse, or it can come really early on, such as love bombing, where it's like, wow, this person's just wonderful. They're always going to treat me like this. And then we all know what happens after the love bombing stage. So when you start to see some of these things, they look very clear when we're talking about it here, right? But what I want you to remember, like I said, gradually and slowly over time. Patterns. Look at patterns. How is it that they're doing this? When is it that they're doing this? What happens before, right? And then I also want you to remember that if you're in this, it's harder to see it when you're in it, for those 2 reasons that I stated earlier. So what you don't want to do after you've gotten out of a manipulative, toxic situation, relationship, friendship, family member out of your life, whatever the case is, I don't want you to self-blame. It's very easy to do to yourself what they have done to you for many weeks, months, and years, which is to blame you for everything. I don't want you to do that because it is not your fault. It's not. I don't care what you are telling yourself. It is not your fault. Do you want to know why? I will tell you. The reason why it's not your fault is because manipulators pre-think, pre-plan, predetermine most of their steps. Do you understand that a lot of that starts from like the moment they meet you, or even before that, with their own stuff that they have going on? So the way they move, it's not for the benefit of anybody else except for them. And it's usually, most personality disorders are rooted in that like Napoleon complex, right? Of, I am not worthy, I have low self-esteem. And the only way I can make myself feel better is to be able to control, manipulate the actions of others around me. And that is through manipulation and control. You know what they're doing. And if someone is trying to play a trick on you, it is purposeful. It is planned out. You are not that type of person, so it doesn't make sense for you to be on guard for somebody that's trying to manipulate you. That's not how you work. That's maybe not what you saw growing up. That's maybe not how you operate internally. So for you, you're like, wow, they're doing something nice. I would do something nice just like that. Let me receive it. When all along, their thought process was, that is what they need, so let me provide it so that then I can use it to control them in this way. You have to understand there's a totally difference in thinking and operating and how they move differently from you. So do not do and continue to do what they've done to you, which is blame you, make you feel like you're the crazy one. You're not. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that you're blameless, because it takes 2 or more to tango, right? Technically, it takes only 2 to tango, but you know what I mean, right? There are things that you can say, you know what? I take accountability for this, 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 and this. Cool. Got it. Now, when you do that, that's one thing. When you go to the self-blame, when you say my actions in this relationship is a reflection of who I am as a person for the rest of my life, no, we're not doing that no more. So I just wanted to break down the differences, because I know a lot of times when people get out of manipulative and toxic relationships, friendships, or family members, that's the first thing that happens. It's my fault. It's my fault. It's my fault. You've been conditioned to think that way, but it's not. It is not your fault. So a lot of times when I work with clients, that is the first thing we're working on. After we process some of that stuff, we got to work on that. Because if you don't get to the point where you understand that it's actually not your fault, then you could start to work on really healing and moving forward. Thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned for the rest of the videos in this series, and I'll talk to you next time.